Hi everyone, Mrs. Rayburn here. For this week's art lesson, we are going to work together to make some monsters. We're going to design and create our own interesting, unique monsters and creatures. We're going to start by using some wet materials to make some unique, abstract, random blobs and shapes on our paper. And then we're going to look at those blobs and shapes and try to imagine and envision what kind of a monster this could be. And then we're going to add more with drawing materials on top. The first materials that you're going to need to do this assignment are paper. White paper would be best, but any lighter toned paper. Watercolor paper would be the best to use, but other than that, the thickest paper you can find, because as the paper gets wet, sometimes if the paper's thin, it'll wrinkle. But plain old printer paper will work just fine. It just might wrinkle a little bit. In addition to paper, you're going to want some watercolor paints. Now I know we don't all have watercolor paints, possibly. That's okay. If you have any kind of paint at home, acrylic paint, tempera paint, poster paint, you can take a little bit of that paint and add a lot of water to it to sort of make it really runny and watery like watercolor paint is, and use that too. If you don't have any paint at home at all, no problem. You can use for this assignment, one of the things that artists often paint with is coffee. You can take a cup of black coffee and actually use that as your watercolor paint. Also, tea works really well. Maybe your parents drink tea and not coffee. A nice cup of black tea with no cream or sugar added to it can work too. And you'll see in the video demonstration that I will use all of those materials. I will use watercolor paint, I will use black coffee, and I will use 2 different kinds of tea. So no matter what, hopefully you'll be able to find something to work for your assignment. The other thing you're going to need is some paintbrushes and a place that you can work where if the coffee or the watercolor bleeds through the paper, maybe put something down so that you don't get paint or coffee on your family's furniture. Maybe some newspaper or a piece of plastic. All right, let's go get started. Okay, so here I have my paper that I put my organic random watercolor and coffee and tea blobs on. And you really want to let the paper dry completely. It might even be a good idea to do this part of the assignment one day and do the next part of the assignment over a couple of days. You can also do like I did and make I put 4 different shapes on one piece of paper. You could do more than that, or you could do one big shape on a piece of paper. You could use multiple pieces of paper and make different types of stains with different materials and decide later after it's dry which one you want to work with, which one is inspiring you the most. On this paper we have, let's see, this was black tea right here. This one was coffee. And this one down at the bottom, the lighter one, was green tea. Now, this didn't come out very green, but I know that a lot of green tea does come out pretty green. So if you do use your green tea at home, it might have a little bit more tone. And then this is watercolor. So I used some blue and green watercolor for the bottom one. So now I'm going to take this piece of paper and I'm going to start to envision and imagine and draw on top of this dry painting to add features to the monster. Eyes, nose, mouth, legs, arms, maybe even some background. Maybe I feel like these 2 creatures look like they're fighting or something, or maybe there's some connection between them, the way the 2 materials ran together. So I might make these 2 different creatures that are somehow interacting with one another. Yeah, just some basic ideas that I have so far. I am going to use for this next step, I'm going to use a black pen or a couple different black pens that have different size tips. And I'm going to maybe use some colored pencil too. And but you can really use any material you want to draw on top of this. I think ink works really well. I wouldn't use another water-based material like watercolor. I would use materials like pencil, colored pencil, ink, things like that should give you a pretty good result. The most important thing is have fun, experiment, try new things. If one monster doesn't work out, try another one. You never know. So thank you guys for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Here's my finished product. And while I was working on this, you know, I didn't really have a plan when I got started. I just sort of started doodling and thinking about what the shapes might look like. And I ended up with this sort of picture of, I don't know, I like to think of it as sort of demented monster spa, where this guy is getting some sort of a spa treatment in the green goo. And this monster is, you know, in charge, and he's using this other monster to keep the bubbles going. And I don't know what this guy's doing. Maybe he is just, he's sort of inspecting. He's the boss. He just flies around and makes sure that all the customers are happy. I don't know. If I had spent more time, I spent about 40 minutes on this drawing, doing the drawing part over top of the splotches of color. If I were to spend more time on this, I would have maybe done some more with the background, maybe done a little bit more detail with some of the characters, but I'm pretty happy with the result. I hope you guys have fun with this assignment, and I'm excited to see what you come up with.